for WikiLeaks. Well, anybody could write a story about Assange for WikiLeaks, but so you can have the idea, somebody else can listen to your idea and go and execute it. They go and execute it better than your script. They sell that script, that becomes a Hollywood movie. So you've got to have that confidence that you are the right execution team to deliver what the idea and concept that you want to deliver. And from my perspective, open and transparent and talking to as many people as possible is better than the alternative.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Any more questions for Tom? Can I ask you a quick question? I mean, networking and cold calling are the things that people fear most, I think.
Yeah.
How do you sort of open up a conversation that you, the way that you feel comfortable, Tom?
Well, the way, I mean, well, for me, it's always been a case of, like, when I first worked at Sportal, the one thing I took from that was the CEO we had was a hugely charismatic guy. He was the sort of guy who could walk out, go to the coffee shop, come back with 10 business cards, and he had like 4,000 people in his network. And I found that incredible. And as a young person straight out of university, it's like I had no network. But what I took from that is that you basically add people through your life. You develop reputation for doing good things, and they will come back for you. So I try and keep in contact with everyone I've basically ever worked with, ever went to school with, ever went to university with, and keep all of those connections alive. So, and by keeping those connections alive and having those conversations, meeting up, that opens it up. So I do less probably of the cold calling than anything else. I try and do the soft connection. So by having a contact with somebody and they say, oh, well, I know so-and-so and so-and-so, and that is the lead-in. So with, for example, Martha Lane Fox, that was a friend of mine from university who became a friend, and I was trying to help her with some charity stuff, and she said, oh, come in, I run Martha Lane Fox's charity, maybe you can have a chat to her as well about the retail side. So that's how I try and do everything, as a soft lead-in with an introduction which therefore carries weight, rather than a cold call.
Do you find that people respond well to that? Because I find that when you're talking to people, that's a great way to sell to people, right? Because you want to make that connection, you want to know them and who they are, and people want to work with you, not necessarily your technology all the time.
Yeah.
And that's what they're buying. But I find it you get two levels of people, right? Somebody who's got the traditional sales technique, and it's almost impossible to bridge the gap between those two different types of sales. I mean, do you
well, I mean, I guess I'm never selling, sort of thing, basically. So, I mean, I will meet everyone. So when somebody says to me, oh, well, I know somebody who's got a really small boutique, and it's like, well, I'm not going to do a deal with them today, but I might do a deal with them in 18 months' time. I'll still have a meeting with them. So, like, therefore if I flip that on its head, therefore me as a small startup wanting to try and talk to someone bigger, my conversation is about, I'm just looking for advice. And if you go in with that premise, that's flattering to the person you're going to have a coffee with, and they're more than happy to talk about their life. Like, if everyone can they start going on and they won't stop. So that's fine. I think the US are much better at this than we are. So if you go to the US, I went on a sort of fact-finding mission to New York, you can get meetings, no problem, and people will find time for you. They'll give you breakfast meeting, after work meeting, not having known you, and doing that sort of cold calling, chat is much easier. I think in the UK we're much more circumspect and cautious and cynical about approaches like that. So we tend to need some sort of lead-in or intro. So things like LinkedIn are great. You sort of gradually find out how somebody's connected to someone else. But again, it's that thing of like just work your own network, keep your network alive, and they will bring you people. And what I find as well, if you read Malcolm Gladwell's book, The Tipping Point, which is a great book, it talks about people who are connectors and people who are mavens. So there are people within your network who have massive connections, and they're probably very loose connection to you, and they'll probably give you much more value than your strong, close group unit of friends. And then there are other people in your group who will be experts in a certain field. So when they say something to someone else, that holds and carries huge amount of weight. So those are the sort of people who will help your business more so than your 100 closest friends.
Right. Does that work for your management team as well? Is that how you build out the team you work with?
Networking, yeah. In terms of like building people, again, it's all through recommendation and trust based. So I've got people who've worked for me in the past now. My co-founder's got people who he's worked with and known and trust as well. And we're then gradually using that network. That network will get us so far, and then we have to add in people we don't know. And we've got people that none of us knew before we started, but we had a really good connection with them. So yeah, ends up being a mix. But
there's a hand that went up over there.
I was about to ask whether you did use the social networking tools to keep your network alive, but you probably just answered it for me.
yeah, so I mean, I think I remember one, like when bootstrapping, I had no money, literally no money. I didn't know what I was going to do, and I just wrote on Facebook, does anybody know of any work going, consultancy work? And I got a reply from a guy who I hadn't seen since school 12 years ago, who said, yeah, come on down, and we've got something. And that was at the Young Foundation, so I did some consultancy work for them, and yeah, that was straight on trust straight away. So absolutely, that's worked well. I mean, I don't use Twitter that much, for example, really. We still don't quite get why anybody would want to listen to what I've got to say, but certainly on the
here, Tom.
Yeah, but in terms of tweeting is slightly different, but certainly LinkedIn I've used a bit. I think it's quite interesting to see and track how people move to different jobs, and that's quite interesting. And also, yeah, Facebook has been interesting, but mainly it's been just keeping my connections alive by doing the emails and the calls, and it's a lot of work, so you have to give away a lot of your evenings a week. So.
Can I just add one more question? You
Yeah.
obviously don't come from a financial banking background, but I think your first main investor was from that
Yeah.
field. How did you find your way in there?
Well,
It's quite a closed community in some respects, isn't it?
well, I mean, I was an economics graduate. I went to, I was fortunate enough to go get a scholarship to a good school. So a lot of the people of my peers from school and university did go into banking.
Right.
So having been in banking and then into hedge funds for 10, 15 years, they're now making big money.